My name is Charles Belcher. I'm also known as Abbas Abdul Rahman. I was born in Newark, New Jersey, in I guess what's called the inner city ghetto situations. Around the age of, I guess, 12, my family, my brother, my mother, and my stepdad, we moved to the suburbs of in Union County in New Jersey. So that was a big change, a lot of grass all of a sudden, and not just a park, but all over the place. So it was new housing. My uncle also moved next door to us, so the family kind of moved there. So we had most of our family still living in Newark. And there I had a budding athletic career. I was first team all-county basketball, and I was also the captain of the football team, co-captain. My teenage years were, I guess, pretty typical for American teenagers. We did most of the, went to New York City, which was close to us. We had a lot of entertainment, going to the Apollo Theater quite often. And on Sundays, we would always go to Sunday school and to the church. And so that was sort of my upbringing during my time in New Jersey. Yes, my family is basically from a Christian background, yeah. Well, no, there wasn't really that, it wasn't that much pressure on us, though we definitely were taught that going to Sunday school and attending, and that Sunday was a special day, and going to church was something that was looked upon as favorable. We went to Sunday school, but it wasn't really anything that was harshly put on us. It was pretty casual, but yeah, we go into Sunday school, not every Sunday, but we used to go quite often. More like a neighborhood thing. A lot of our friends would be there. I guess for us it was more, dressing up. We like to dress up, having nice suits and ties and things like that. And after church, we would all go to the sweet shops on the corner and talk about what happened Saturday night at the parties and things like that, and show off our fineries, and then we go home. Usually Sunday was also a great day for dinner, so I was quite fortunate. I had my grandmother cooking and my aunts cooking, so I could choose which Sunday dinner I wanted to go to, and just call my mom and say, "Oh, I'm eating at Grandma's tonight." So it was quite good, and Sunday was always a special day for us. Well, we didn't talk about it per se as a family, but I guess me personally, I always felt anytime there was any sort of any wrong that was done, or any sort of unseen tragedies, I always had the feeling that, well, it's okay, God knows the truth about what's happening, and that was a consolation for me. It wasn't that much connected to the church or anything. It was just sort of an understanding that I had, that there was a supreme being and that He was watching. So I always had that in mind, though a lot of times my actions may not have indicated that. Well, of course, going to Sunday school, that was the main topic, topic of the Bible. We heard some of the stories, and of course, Jesus was the main focus. The Trinity wasn't really a big thing. I used to go to the African Episcopalian Church, or a Baptist church. So it was a lot more like singing and celebratory sort of stuff. I guess, and also in the tradition of the slaves, because we're descendants from our ancestors came from a slave population. So it was a time of rejoicing of the freedom that we had, and Sundays was a day of wearing our fineries and celebrating God and His prophets, but in a pretty casual kind of manner. I mean, we listened to the morals of the preachers and the pastors. They always gave us good lessons and things of that sort. So it was pretty. But it wasn't that intense. It was pretty casual, more social than anything, I think. I used to go to Sunday school. I really liked my Sunday school teacher. Well, of course, growing up in the greater New York area, we had exposure to Elijah Muhammad and you know, the Nation of Islam. So I was quite exposed to that. The bean pies during those times was like a new entity. And the fact that the brothers were strikingly different in their presentation, like they were clean, dressing every day of the week, not just Sunday. And they also had the drive for economics, like they were selling bean pies and different sorts of products. So they were definitely one of the few black entities that were trying to start businesses in the community and things like that. And there was a sense of unity about them that was impressive. I guess when I went to university in New Jersey, and I remember a particular time when the Black Student Union had 2 guest speakers. So it's 2 Muslim brothers came in garb, like robes, and they gave a lecture. And I remember watching them leave and thinking like, wow, these brothers really were on point, and what they were saying was like really great. But as they left, so did my, you know, conviction to what they were saying. I just turned around and became the college student that I was, and back to the old business of being a college student and what all that entailed. Well, I think they basically just expanded on the exposure that the Nation of Islam had to the black community in the United States, which was making us aware of the names Allah and Muhammad and Islam. And also there was, of course, the movie Roots, where, you know, Kunta Kinte, when he was in the bush and he was running and hiding and he was like trying to call to another slave and he said, Assalamu alaikum. So this was like, oh, what is he doing talking about Assalamu alaikum? So Alex Haley, we always wondered, why didn't Alex Haley embrace Islam after that? Because it was pretty apparent that some of the slave population was Muslim. I did some DNA stuff recently and found that both of my parents originated from Ghana. So that was kind of intriguing. And of course, there's Lawrence Hill, who wrote the Book of Negroes, and the star character there, the lady, she's from a tribe near Timbuktu, and she was also introduced to Islam and all that. So a lot of things kind of tied in eventually. Well, I guess I was in Toronto, and you know, typical sort of pretty immersed in the West Indian community at that time. And there was a brother I knew. He was from Trinidad. He was a DJ, and we used to party a lot. And he embraced Islam. And then after about maybe a couple months, he came back to the house and he just confronted me and said, brother, you should be a Muslim. So I'm saying, what you talking about, man? Well, you know, why you say that about me? What's going on? So he says, yeah, I know you. You should be a Muslim. So I said, man, get out of here. What are you talking about? So he says, okay, when you go to your grave, like, you know, and they ask you the questions, what you going to say? So I said, well, I'm going to say, you know, Jesus is my prophet, and, you know, I believe in God. And what you mean what I'm going to say? Like, why you ask me these questions, man? So he was a good buddy of mine. I wasn't really annoyed, but I was sort of intrigued. So afterwards, when I reflected, I said, wow, these are pretty weak answers I'm giving. And my commitment to these answers is also rather weak. So that put me on a journey to study the various religions. So I studied all the religions for about 2 years. I even had Rastafarian dreadlocks for a while, all of that. Just trying to open my mind and my scope to, well, if this is really true, that when I die, I'm going to be held accountable for my religious beliefs and what I did and all these things, then I should at least investigate a little bit deeper and come to a stronger conclusion. So after about two to 3 years of kind of studying and delving into like all the different religions, I had some buddies I used to go and hang out with, they were Muslim guys, and they were also giving me like dawah and information and all that. So that information was clearly superior to all the other information I was getting, and it made way more sense. So I was gravitating towards Islam basically because of the research that I had done, and just that Islam made way more sense than all the rest of the religions and kind of rung true for me. No, even though, of course, people are always, your family members, people are always dying around us. No, I don't know if it was because we were young, but no, the topic of death I didn't really come across. It was the day that Khalid sort of asked me that question where it really hit me like, wow, yeah. I just thought it was just something that you just do and it's all over with. But then he brought up the concept, no, it's not over. Then you're going to be asked questions. You're going to have to declare yourself. And so that put a different twist on the responsibility of not only living, but also when I die, I also have responsibilities to be accountable for my life. So that was kind of the first kind of great awakening about the concept of death being more than just something that you succumb to. Well, I studied Judaism, I studied the Trinity and Christianity, I studied Catholicism, the history of it, and the things that it entailed, Rastafarianism and the history of it and all that entailed, Buddhism, Confucianism. Yeah, I studied all of them. And in good depth too. And also Hinduism and yeah. Well, I guess it was in Toronto, and I think it was probably after I took Shahada. So I never had the Quran, I don't think, prior to that. I used to go visit some brothers, I think they had Quran available, but we were mostly reading hadiths and things of that nature. Historical stuff, but I guess it was when I embraced Islam in Toronto, and the brothers presented me with a Quran that day. Yeah, I was like quite taken aback that it was very similar to the Bible, and that it was a lot of stories that I already knew about, I'd already heard from my days at the Sunday schools and things like that. So it was quite familiar to me. Of course, Muhammad, peace be upon him, there wasn't much, I didn't know much about his life or his story, so that was really only the part that was new. All the rest of it was pretty familiar. Well, like I said, I was with these brothers. I used to go and visit them, Muslim guys, and one day they said, well, like, you coming around here a lot, like you learning a lot of stuff, like you should just be a Muslim. I said, oh, I don't know about that. Like, come on, guys. It's like, I'm just checking things out, right? And they said, well, do you believe in one God? I said, well, yeah, I always believed in one God. So they said, will you accept Muhammad as his last messenger? I said, well, yeah, sure, no, that's not a problem. So they said, well, that's it, that's what you need to do. So we went from Lansdowne, where the brothers had their apartment, or the house where they were living in, and we went to Bousted Avenue, and there was a Tabligh Jamaat in town that day. And it was led by a brother by the name of Colonel Mordeen. And apparently he was a famous Pakistani general, and he had a sword mark on his head, right? So he was quite a striking figure. And he gave me the Shahada. So I always remember that day. And they had a bookstore there, so the brothers gave me a few books along with the Quran that day. Yeah, I was with the Sunni Madhab for like 15, maybe 16, 17 years. A lot of Tabligh Jamaat brothers would come through, and we would sit and talk with them. And of course, we were doing a lot of studying. And I guess at one time, one of the brothers said, like, you brothers are like alims if you were in Pakistan or whatever. You brothers know the Quran, and you brothers know like these hadiths and Bukhari and all these things like really well. So, I think we were doing quite well. It was like it was a bit of a change, of course. We weren't hanging out on Saturday nights like we used to, or partying on Friday nights. We were going to Jummah, and we're having like like meetings where we discuss Quran and trying to learn how to read Arabic and just embracing the Islamic culture. But still, there was some of the West Indian culture there too, because culturally most of the brothers were West Indians. They used to refer to me as a saltwater Yankee, meaning that I was just talking like an American, but really I was a West Indian who had went to America, got the accent, and now I was in Canada trying to pretend I was an American. But yeah, things were going really well. Well, one of my best brothers, who had also embraced Islam, he was from South Africa. So we were at the Mosque, and like I said, many Tabligh Jamaats were coming through all the time. So, and they were always asking brothers to, you know, go on the path of Allah for 40 days or 60 days or 20 days or 5 days. And they were quite influential and quite inspiring, the speeches they would give and some of the information they would put out. And the fact that they had left their homes, which was thousands of miles away, and were traveling on the path was quite inspiring. So the fact that they were South Africans really triggered my friend, because he was a South African. So he convinced me to go with them for 40 days on this Tabligh Jamaat. So we were quite immersed, of course, so it was now like Islam from morning till night. Like everything was about Islam. We went to the city of Detroit, where we were visiting Muslim families, brothers who had maybe were lapsing as far as going to the masjid and things like that. We were visiting them and encouraging them to get back on the path, and also to come on the path with us. We were heading to New York. So I remember there was one session where we were praying, and the brother said, according to which madhab you follow, you either do 2 rakats or you do 4 rakats. And like I was confused, because as far as I'm concerned, there was only one Islam, and that's what I had been practicing for all these years. I didn't know there was any other sort of differentiation. So I asked the brother, and very politely, like, brother, could you explain which madhab are we following? Then let me know which one we're following. So he says, no, brother, it's not like that. Like when you go back to Toronto, you go to the imam at your mosque and you ask him. So I said, no, bro, I want to know for us now. Like we're here, we all together. I want to know which one we following. And for the first time, I saw the brother get a little bit agitated and aggravated with my persistence. So I backed off and said, well, and just made a mental sort of note that there's something about this that I don't understand. It's not fully explained to me, but I'm gonna have to pursue it at another time, because this brother seemed to be a little perturbed that I'm pursuing this question. So we went to Detroit, and we ended up in New York City, in Harlem, at one of the masjids there. And 40 days was up, and of course we're close by where I grew up. So me and the brother, we went to New Jersey and hung out in New Jersey with my family for about a week or so. And then we returned to Toronto. And things went back to normal for quite a while. And then there was this one brother, he's a Guyanese brother actually, very good in his faith. And we noticed that he was doing things a little bit differently. Like for instance, the biggest one was like when we broke fast for Ramadan. We'd always break fast when the azan went off. But this brother was not breaking his fast. He was breaking his fast after he made the salat. So we were like really puzzled by that. But like he was one of our brothers, it wasn't a big deal. And he was praying with his hands down. We didn't know what that was about either. But like I said, he was one of our brothers, and we knew he was okay. He was very good in his head, and so it wasn't that big of a deal. But again, it was this question now: why is this brother Ahmed, why is he behaving like this now? So, but again, we just went back on to normal life. Everything was moving along. I guess it was about a year and a half, about 2 years, that finally this brother showed up at my house, along with another brother, Abdul Karim. 2 brothers I respected a lot. And they said, yes, brother, here we got some information for you. We just want you to check it out and let us know in about, whenever you get time. Just update us after you finish reading it all, right? So it was an article about Waliyat Faqih, and there was an article about the Ahlul Bayt, and a book, Early History of Islam, and Fatima's Fatima. And Hussein the Savior, and Ali the Magnificent. This was the package. So, of course, I delved into it with a lot of enthusiasm, because I thought it would solve this mystery about what was going on with these brothers over this time that they didn't really talk to me about, but I knew something was up. And so, of course, that really opened my mind to so many things about Islam that I had no idea I wasn't aware of. And of course, the tragedy of Karbala was so striking that I was sort of put back that well, here I am in Islam for so many years, and I don't know something of this magnitude. So we talked to the brothers, and they introduced us to this brother that they were being mentored by, a brother named Sayyid Musri. So we started to go to Sayyid Musri's house, and we go to his, and he was, giving us information, supplying us with books and the like. But we were still loyal to like the Jami Mosque and the brothers who were at the masjid there. And at the time, it was a brother who we knew for years, a Sudanese brother, Sayyid Musri. No, Abdul Idris. So we went to the masjid, and I guess quite naively, we introduced some of the information that we had newly found, with enthusiasm to the brothers, because we loved all the brothers there. They had always been good to us, and we were always good with them. And it was a Sunday halakah. We used to go sit in the circles on Sundays and just share the knowledge that we had. So we brought this, what we call the Yellow Quran, and it had the Al-Bayt Tafsir. So when we were reading this, one brother like just jumped up and like was astaghfirullah, and really carrying on. So he was like saying, wow, what a reaction. Like this is really over the top. So next thing you know, we were called up to the Abdul Idris's office. And he was saying like, well, brothers, and we said, well, brother, don't you respect the Jafri school of thought? He said, yes, I do. He said, well, why can't we share this information in the masjid? He said, brothers, if I allow you brothers to share this, I never forget this statement either. If I allow you brothers to share this information in the mosque will boil. So we like turned around and said, wow, we're not trying to cause trouble. We're just excited about this new information we got, and we just looking for some clarification, because, even though we've been in the deen for, over 10, 15 years, we still consider ourselves new Muslims. We're still learning. So we wanted to bring it to our place where we learn, the mosque, and try to get some clarity. But we don't want the mosque to boil. Like, this is the last thing we're trying to do. So there was friction going on around that area, and finally we decided, okay, we'll leave the Jami Mosque and we'll go to the Bayview Mosque, where we were welcomed by Maulana Bakri, who basically took us in, and we told him our story, what was going on. And he just consoled us, and we met the community there, it was very open. And we began our education now more with the Al-Bayt. And this was now accelerated by the fact that we were playing a part with the Hajj conferences. So the scholars and Ayatollahs was coming over from Iran and Iraq, and making presentations in Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, and our group of brothers were a part of that scene. So we got opportunities to ask the Ayatollahs personal questions about our marriages and some of the things that we've been going through as converts to Islam. So it was quite enlightening and uplifting. So for a final touch, we approached the brothers at the Jami Mosque and said, okay, brothers, let's have like a mubahala kind of thing. Like, let's have a discussion of the two sides of these information. So we went and got contact with some brothers from Hamilton that we didn't really know, but we knew they were brothers from the Shia Madhab. And they came, and we sat in the mosque and we had a discussion. And the discussion was a discussion that was very one-sided. Like the Shia information and arguments were totally accurate and convincing, and we even turned to the Sunni scholars who were there and said, brothers, do you guys know about this? And they all said, yeah, we are aware of these facts and figures. And so they knew things of like Gardi Qum, they knew about it. They knew about Ashura, Karbala, and Imam Hussein, they knew about it. So we asked them, like, well, why you brothers never, let us know about this before? Like, why is this this information is only with you brothers, and why? So it was like a turning point for most of us. Like, some of the brothers actually remain Sunnis, Allahu Akbar, and They're still good friends with us now. We're still good buddies and all that. But the majority of the brothers decided to go to the Bayview Mosque, and here we are now, about 20 years later, I guess. There was also a lot of hostility now coming out of the Juma khutbahs by some very prominent people, which was also very shocking. And it was, I guess we were always sort of hinted that, well, anything Shia is bid'ah, so don't even give it ear, don't even give it. So that was kind of how we were trained and taught. And once this thing sort of was exposed, and we still went to the Jami Mosque for the Juma khutbahs, but it was an obvious kind of combating against this new information or this new awareness that we had. And so it got to be really sort of not so pleasant. And as far as the explanation, there was never any explanation at all. If anything, it was more like, well, you brothers are, doing something wrong. You brothers are doing something bad. And unfortunately, that session with the scholars was a very limited session. There wasn't many, it wasn't like aired for the public. It was really just our group of brothers who were there. So it wasn't really a public thing, per se. But there was no real explanation at all from any of the Sunni brothers. When I embraced Islam, my mother was one of my, she said, why do you want to, join something where these people in New York are killing each other all the time? And, so she was concerned about the fact that, there was a lot of friction in the Muslim community, and there was killings happening in New York City, and the way the media was spinning it, it was Muslim against Muslim. But as far as the media, no, the media wasn't like as Islamophobic as it is now. And we had no ideas about Sunni, Shia, any sort of concepts back in those days. The media really wasn't really playing much of a part as far as influencing any of us at that point. I think the biggest thing that happened in the media was when the Islamic Revolution happened. That was huge. But prior to that, there wasn't much going on. I've always been kind of, I left my family basically in New Jersey. I left the country. I think I'm the only one in this generation that's actually left America. So, I think I'd already established myself as somebody that does what I want to do, and I think my family had more reaction to me leaving America because of the being in the Marine Corps and a deserter and not going to Vietnam than anything about Islam. Well, I was a university student, and I guess like most university students, I guess I got a little disillusioned with the university. I was there on a basketball scholarship. So it was a pretty good life. I was sort of looking for, as 18-year-old youth, I was kind of making mistakes, looking for adventure, wanting to travel the world. And I had had some experience with some of the brothers I knew, had been in the Marine Corps, had been to Vietnam, and I didn't have extensive information about how they were doing, because now I found out later they weren't doing very well when they returned back. But I know some of the brothers have been to Thailand and these kind of places, exotic places that I sort of dreamed of going to. Silk suits for $20 and all these sort of things. So I had that air about me that I wanted to travel, and so I guess I'm looking back, I made a hasty move, left my college education abruptly and joined the Marine Corps. I was an athlete already, so the Marine Corps, the physical part of it wasn't that challenging for me. The mental part was very interesting because I was training with people who were like hippies when they joined, and they got their hair cut, they had long hair. But like 3 weeks later, when we're standing outside the mess hall reading our newspapers, these same people are saying, because the news was the hippies were marching on Washington, and the Marines from Camp Lejeune were going to like quell the riots. And these same guys are saying, yeah, I wish I was there so I could use my bayonet techniques. And this just made me go cold, because I said, well, you were just a hippie like a month ago, and now you want to go use your bayonet techniques on the hippies? I said, so I saw the amount of brainwashing and how quickly it happened. And of course, it was a time when the United States establishment was shooting Black Panthers on the streets of Chicago and LA at an alarming rate, also in Newark. And I did have some connections. Brothers were sending me certain newspapers and things like this. So I was kind of up to date with what was happening as far as America. And then when they shot four college students, white college students in Ohio, at that point I said, like, wait a minute, this government has gone crazy now. Like, I could rationalize why they're killing us, people of color, because we're trying to come up. We've been under oppression for generations, and they see us as a threat for sure. But now they're killing their own children because they're protesting against this war in Vietnam, and I'm training to go there and fight in this war now. I said something is like amiss here, something is wrong. So I started getting a lot of bad feelings about my position in the Marine Corps, and about having to go and actually fight for this country. Prior to my leaving university, we did have a visit by Muhammad Ali, who was doing a tour at the time because I guess he was banned from boxing. I remember he pulled up in a purple Cadillac. That was the biggest thing that I remember. But of course, he gave a speech about his, not wanting to go to the war and, his stance. But I guess in spite of all of that, I still went, and I think that was just the pressure of the culture, and I was an American. I guess even to today, if I hear like the national anthem or a Pledge of Allegiance, like this indoctrination, started when I was really young. So there's still this. I have to make a conscious effort to say, these guys tricked you. And what they got you pledging allegiance to and singing the national anthem about is like, it's folly. It's not real. So, but I was under influence. I was 18 years old, 19 years old. So I went to Marine Corps and realized I was making a mistake. I went to them and said, I don't think I'm cut out for this kind of duty. I think I want to leave the military. And they threatened to like arrest me and put me in jail and all that. So I said, well, that's not going to work rationally. So I waited for my opportunity to just leave. So I went on a pass one weekend, went to Washington, D.C. And in those days, if you have a military ID, you can get on any plane if they got room, and they'll fly you wherever you want to go. So I got on a plane, flew back to New York City, and went home. And when I went home, it was a big stir. Everybody, you better go back. They even brought up ex-Army general or colonel or whatever, karate guy I grew up with, to like, I guess, beat me up, make me go back home. But I said, yeah, if we want to fight, we're going to fight. Like, I've been through basic training, I've been through advanced infantry training, like, I can fight. But it's not going to make a difference. I'm not going back. So finally they just said, well, you're being a hardhead, you should go back. And I said, well, you guys don't know what I just went through. You guys don't know what I'm seeing, so. I love you guys and all that, but I got to do what I have to do. And I was going to go to Trinidad because I had a girlfriend from New York. She was from Trinidad. So I said, Trinidad is pretty cool. So I'm going to go to Trinidad. It's nice and warm there. But I read an article saying there was a lot of people who had deserted and went to the mountains in Trinidad, and the Army had just made a big arrest. So I said, no, I better not go to Trinidad. They're too hot. And so Montreal came up in a magazine I was reading, and in the magazine I saw there was already one black guy there. So I said, well, if they guys are hip enough to have these kind of clubs in Montreal, and there's already a black guy there, maybe I should go to Montreal. And the next week, my neighbor's church was giving a bus ride to Montreal. So I said, well, this is a sign here. So I told them I want a ticket for the bus ride, but I'm not coming back. They said, you're not coming back? I said, yeah. Keep it quiet, I'm not coming back though. So he said, okay. Like, we grew up together, everybody, all these guys in this close neighborhood, right? So they said, well, whatever you want to do, yeah. So we got to the border, and they took a kid and they put him underneath a blanket. So immigration came, they counted the heads on the bus, 57, okay. Went, vacation in Montreal for about 2 weeks. Everybody else got back on the bus, going back to New Jersey. And I put my stuff on my back and I walked to McGill University. So I was in McGill University for about 3 or 4 weeks. Hey, I met a couple of guys there. It was nice. Summertime, Montreal was really beautiful and all that, but I wasn't going anywhere. Nothing was happening for me. So finally people said, you should go to Toronto. You don't speak French. Like, it's going to be tough for you to make it here. Plus your money is running out. So I went to Toronto, and Toronto had what was called the Toronto Anti-Draft Program. It was run by a girl named Naomi Wells and her partner. And they had a network of people who had immigrated to Canada from the United States due to the war, and now were established in Toronto and wanted to help out more people who were coming in. So they had places where you could stay, and they had ways of you making money legally. So I was a Fuller Brush guy. So I used to go around knocking on doors and selling Fuller Brush products for this guy who had the franchise. And I remember the first Grey Cup game. It was like a celebration. And I said, wow, maybe Canada's going to work. But then I was on Bathurst Street in Toronto, and the War Measures Act came down. And I had already been in the Newark riots. So my friend, we were living in a suburb, but we were there talking one night, and we decided to go back to our hometown in Newark to see what the riots looked like. I guess we got stopped about 50 times before we could make it through Newark and back out. And we saw the National Guard guys lined up guarding all the big stores, and the police and all the state troopers. They stopped us at every corner, had us get out and check us out, and say, because we knew the city better than them, we could tell a lie. We said, yeah, we're coming from work, we're trying to get here. So they couldn't say anything. But it was a terrifying experience to see the city where we grew up burning and now under siege. So when I was in Canada and they say, oh, it's now safe here and all that, and all of a sudden the War Measures Act came down and there were tanks on the streets of Toronto. So I was like, wow, this is like deja vu. It was like, but it was quickly over and everything went back to normal. And there was also this place called Rochdale on Bloor Street, where all these hippies were and all kind of stuff was going on. I used to always walk a couple blocks away from Rochdale because it was FBI was there. And they were arresting my uncle on a regular basis in New Jersey, coming to my house, knocking on the door, searching the house, and he happened to be in there helping my mother, you know, do her floors or whatever, and they kept arresting him, thinking he was me. So we always joked. When I came back, he said, "You owe me a lot, man, because I had to go to jail for you and all that." But of course, we got it was the first time in American history that we got the amnesty. So after 5 years of being on the FBI list, they declared amnesty for all of the 100,000 deserters and draft dodgers. First time in American history. And we returned to Fort Benjamin, Indiana, and got our discharges. Well, my name was always Abdul Rahman, like when I was in Toronto. So I added the name Abbas because of the tragedy of Karbala when I embraced Shia Islam. So, you know, I think this is the completion of the Deen in a sense for me. So it's such a huge piece that had been missing and such an integral part of you know, the legacy of Ahlul Bayt that I sort of incorporated that name and the part that Abbas played in that on that day. So, but you know, all of the Ahlul Bayt is extraordinarily special to me, and of course the Prophet, may peace be upon him, is the main guy. So I haven't, no. Well, I was in Syria, so I did go to Bibi Zainab's mausoleum, and so we were there en route to Hajj. So we were there. So that's the only one. I haven't been to Iraq or Iran yet. We were staying at a 5-star hotel. So this was like a big deal. But you know, the entrance to the shrine and going to the shrine clearly outweighed any of the glamour of the 5-star hotel. So I guess that's what really sort of was striking about it. Also the fact that in Syria we also went to the tomb of Bilal. I remember that pretty distinctly. What Well, just the reverence that everyone was paying to baby Zainab, and of course, again, tying in the story of the tragedy of Karbala and the part she played as far as Islam. That was huge. And of course, I felt very fortunate because, you know, I could look back and say, well, if I wasn't exposed to the Ahlul Bayt, I could have easily gone to Syria and, you know, have no knowledge whatsoever of Zainab's life or story or anything. So I felt very fortunate that at least I went to Syria at a time that I was aware of the Ahlul Bayt and her presence and her importance. I don't think there's any comparison to any sort of struggles that we have that compares to the sacrifice of Imam Hussein on the plains of Karbala. I think this is the epitome of sacrifice, and so I think the relation to the great sacrifice of the Prophet Abraham and how this was suspended and put in place for it to be Imam Hussein, I think that was really a key thing. So again, I felt very fortunate that after such a long time feeling like I was educated in Islam and the Deen, that these important pieces were now, I was at least aware of them. So I felt fortunate that I was no longer in the dark about Imam Hussein and his sacrifice and all that entailed. Yes, my wife and I, we both work in the healthcare field. We both she's a nurse, and like I'm a youth and family counselor. So we actually met on, we work with kids in psychiatric and psychological crisis. We met in Toronto working together in this field. So when we came out here, she actually embraced Islam while she was here. So she's a very new Muslim compared to my experience. So one of the highlights, I guess, of our time here was a time when I had retired from my job at Children's Hospital and was just working sort of casually. So we took the opportunity to come to the school and work with the teachers and the students here at the school. So I was basically working for her. She was more or less the spearhead of it. And we called our little union Hearts First, because we were dealing with the transformation of child development, that we should be looking towards enriching the child, trying to increase his generosity, trying to get away from coercion. If you don't do this, we're going to do that. These things now have been scientifically proven are not the best way to raise children and for their development. So we're trying to introduce a lot of that into the environment here, into the school. And as counselors also, though we were dealing at Children's Hospital with a lot more serious sort of issues, we were in tune to child development and able to detect certain things out of children's behavior. So it was quite a rewarding and interesting time that we spent here. Unfortunately, she had contracted breast cancer 10 years previously, and the cancer returned. She was in remission for about 10 years and cancer returned, so it metastasized. So she became quite ill again, so we had to stop, and she's been under treatment ever since. The good news is that through all the prayers, because she got to be quite well known rather quickly, but through the prayers of all of the Muslims here in the community, and of course the brothers in Toronto and Ottawa that we know who knew her and knew of the situations, like the du'as were pouring in all over. And alhamdulillah, she had an emergency in August, where she was quite ill and fought off 2 infections. And the doctor changed her medication when she came out of the hospital. And from that time to now, it's been steady improvement. So though she's not fully recovered, she doesn't have a full energy, she was able to make it to the journey of Islam this year, which was a great thing for her because she got to see a lot of the kids that she had been working with was asking, "Oh, do you remember me?" And you know, so I think that really lifted both of our hearts a lot. So the community has been like outstanding as far as their support and the love and caring that they've shown has been unbelievable. So that's been so we're very much in debt to the community and the dues that everyone has sent. It was a time when, you know, I felt pretty powerless at times. I wasn't able to go to work when I wanted to go to work a lot of times, so it was really constricting. Yeah, I was making a lot of dues, and I guess it really humbled me that I didn't have much control over what was going on. It was a woman my best friend in life, and she was not doing well, and there was not much I could really do about it other than console her. And she's a nurse. I didn't think it would be that I would be taking care of her. You know, I thought it would be the other way around. That would be more fitting as the way I look at it. But as one of the brothers told me, you know, that's not Allah's plan. Allah's plan is for you to take care of us. So kind of buck up and, you know, rise to the occasion. So alhamdulillah, it was quite a hard experience for me. I'm not sort of that kind of guy, the nursing kind of guy, but family, friends, and like I said, the community was like outstanding as far as their support for me also. So they would always ask how she was doing, and yeah, it was really quite a good support for me. So it helped me out a lot. Oh, most definitely. You know, death is inevitable, and you know, this life is a preparation for it. But you know, we're all scared of it, and it's an unknown, and none of us know what our tabulation is at this time, and you know, just things that we have no control over. So I think that reality was really sprung upon me at an unexpected time. And you know, some of the brothers said, like, this is, Allah loves you. He's showing you this test so that you can be stronger and all that, you know, while tears are rolling down my eyes and I'm feeling like a little baby. Like, so now I can kind of reflect on it. But, you know, I guess when we're going through things, a lot of times it's hard to see the hikmah of it. But Allah reveals things in His own ways and His own time. So I'm thankful for the journey. I feel like I should be one of the ambassadors because I know the outside world. I'm a North American. I know the population, and you know, I used to be like those guys who are not into Deen. So I think we could probably do a better job. I think, and now that Islamophobia is at such a rampant pitch, I think it's even more incumbent upon us to come up with more inventive ways and more persistent ways to actually put our message out. I think the journey into Islam, I just brought two people. One person was a family member, the other one was a work colleague. So I was happy about the work colleague. He responded very well, and when I checked Facebook, he had put pictures, and then a lot of his friends said, yeah, it's good, you should know about Islam, you should learn about these sort of things. So, you know, as I think there will come a time when the people will be embracing Islam in troops, you know, and but I think it's up to us to make it happen. And you know, it's going to take a lot of courage because it's easy for us to hide. Like, I could take off my hat and you just see my little bald head with a little bit of hair coming and hear my American accent. There's no way you would think I'm Muslim unless you saw me and thought I was a Pakistani. But the minute I open my mouth, oh, he's not a Pakistani, he's American, he can't be a Muslim. But so little things. I think it's different from the women. The women wearing the hijab, alhamdulillah, is very apparent. But you know, the brothers, I think we need to show a little bit more bravery. And I think there's a story by Sheikh, I don't want to mispronounce his brother's name, Sheikh Osama. He's talking about he's from like the West Indies, and I heard the story. The father is always in like you know, Arab garb in the West Indies. So the brothers were visiting him and said, like, why are you always in a garb like this? Like, you don't have to do that as a Muslim. And he said, well, because the sisters have to wear the hijab and it makes them like very obvious. So in support of them, I want to be obvious too as a Muslim. So I think these kind of things, but it's, it's interesting, because as a Sunni, I think we were much more into wearing the garbs and coming out on Jummah Day like proud and like strutting down the streets like, with our turbans and the whole shot. I see that Shia Islam is, wouldn't dare wear a turban, because this is the garb of the scholar. So I think we're a little bit more knowledgeable. And our dress is pretty, we look like we could be Christians or whatever. We don't wear topi. And if you look around the crowds, even on Eid Day and all that, Eid Day when we're Sunni brothers, hey, Eid, man, we're like to the bone, like, everything is like, it's like the Sunday school when we were kids. We're wearing our finery. And we're proud, and we walk in the streets, and the people could honk, blow their horns, Toronto, who could care, we love it, right? So that kind of pride, I don't see that transferring as a Shia. We're much more, subdued, conservative. You look in the congregation of Jummah, you take a picture, it could be maybe one brother got a topi on, you never know. So I don't question it, because I know it's about our hearts. But if we're talking about sort of exposing and educating the public, then I think we could be a little bit more apparent. So our neighbors will be curious, and they could ask, oh, I didn't know you was Muslim. Tell me about this, tell me about that. Because I find if you're open to people, and people, especially if people know you, then, because this year, like when about 4 or 5 people came to me and said, oh, I want to go to this thing. And I said, oh, sorry, like registration is over, it's closed now. Maybe next year. So they were quite disappointed. But then I found out that they could have come at 7 o'clock, 7:30, after the dinner was over. So it was all about how many people were going to be there for dinner. So me, I wasn't that informed, so I didn't really know. By the time I called them back, said, oh, you guys can come at 7:30, be okay? It was, it was kind of too late. So, I think I'm also very guilty of not being as involved in the mosque as I could be, trying to go to work and, these other kind of things. So I think in my experience for myself first, I could definitely do more. But I think as a community, and we see these things like in Dearborn, Michigan, there's Muslim communities there, they got the football teams. And so, I grew up with these sort of things. This is what North America is kind of about. So I think we can be more visible. We can have a Muslim hockey team. When I was here in the school working with the kids, we did some basketball, but we weren't involved in the private school leagues and these sort of things. So I realized that people want to be cautious as far as exposing the kids to the, quote, North American culture and society, but I think we have to have more faith in the youth, that they're tougher than we think they are. And I think it's a lot of times it's the adults' sort of apprehension as far as to letting the kids really go out and experience and be able to come back and still be loyal. I think the parenting could use some input. And again, my wife and I are trying to play some role in that. We probably could play a better role. She's getting well, so we hope that we can return to the school and maybe contribute some more to that. I would say, like, follow your heart and use your head. And realize that if you're even contemplating it, it's a blessing from the Creator, because the wrong path is like the path of North America. You can go down it and you get blinded very easily. And be conscious, because I look at myself, I feel very fortunate that I'm not an ISIS fighter in Syria right now, facing, murdering people and dying in that state of being a killer and a murderer. I could have easily been there if I hadn't been introduced to Elevate, because as a Sunni Muslim, to go fight jihad and all that, we were the guys that would have did that, because we're the tough guys. We're the street guys. We fight. So very easily, me and the brothers that I was with, we could be there very easily. So fortunately, we get the insight into this, and now we're on the other side. So I'd much rather be the target of that kind of oppression or that kind of that kind of ideology rather than have been immersed in it. Because I was there at a time, and it's only by the grace of Allah that I'm now sitting here in this position. So for people to be very cautious when they're making decisions at this point, and also to consult many authorities, not just one or two, not just one scholar. Talk to many scholars, because I think that's an advantage. You'll get a wider point of view, and you'll find the truth within that, rather than just putting all your faith in one particular scholar. I think it's good to go to as many as you can. Well, I'll give my salam alaikum to all the brothers and sisters there, and hope to see you in Hajj one day, if I'm lucky enough to return. Yes, just remember the sacrifices of Imam Hussein, and make this be our call for us to be a little more stronger, a little more assertive. This North America is Allah's country. It's not like, so this culture thing about, well, I'm from here, I'm from there. I'm an immigrant from America. But like, I feel like Canada is just like America as far as I'm concerned, as far as my entitlement. So I think if you come from far away, you come from close by, you know, this is Allah's place, so own it. Don't let the culture of Canada, which is changing under Harper. Hopefully things could be different under Trudeau. But we're here, and we're full citizens from the jump because of the sacrifice we made to come here, and the contributions that we have made here makes us full citizens, no second class anything. And of course, Islam wants us to be the best at whatever we do. So that doesn't just mean at our occupation, but it's also as far as a citizen of this country. So I think Sheikh Mutazar is always telling us that we need to be more involved in politics and writing letters. I think this is definitely true. Well, I come from the background that we were oppressed in the United States for hundreds of years, and that fight is still going on now. And now with Islamophobia, the thing that is most hurting to me is that I see the black community in America all of a sudden, like, they're no longer the target, and they want to be big Americans all of a sudden. So for them, I say, you guys wake up, like, this is all a trick. And but this life we have is precious, and it's short. So own where you're at and be proud of what you believe in, and be kind to people, and treat people well. But don't let people run over you, and stand up for your rights, because we do have the right to Allah's land and to live happily and freely and without oppression. So that would be my message.